Deep beneath an Amazon river, something enormous begins to move. You see a ripple, then a shadow, then a body so thick it feels unreal. High in the canopy, another giant waits, while on the forest floor something small crawls that should not be that big. This is why the Amazon jungle turns animals into giants. In this place, size stops following normal rules, and as these massive shapes shift through water, leaves and shadow, one question becomes impossible to ignore. What is it about this jungle that keeps turning life into something larger than it should be? Now that you have seen how the Amazon hides its giants, let's start with the one that proves this place can grow monsters. The green anaconda does not live on dry land the way most people imagine. It lives in the flooded heart of the rainforest, in slow rivers, swamps, and seasonal wetlands, where the forest itself turns into water. In this world, gravity barely matters, and that changes everything. The green anaconda is the heaviest snake on Earth. Some individuals can weigh more than a small car, with bodies thicker than a human thigh. But you almost never see one like that. What you usually notice is a ripple in the water, a dark coil slipping beneath the surface, or a head rising just long enough to breathe. The rest of the body stays hidden and supported by water. That support is the secret. On land, a snake that heavy would struggle to move. In water, the anaconda can carry enormous mass with ease. It does not have to fight its own weight, so it can keep growing year after year. And because the Amazon stays warm and full of prey all year, nothing ever forces the anaconda to stop. Which leads to a far bigger question. If one animal can grow this large here, what is it about this jungle that lets so many creatures keep getting bigger and bigger? There are rainforests in Africa and jungles in Southeast Asia that are just as green and just as hot as the Amazon, yet none of them produce animals that reach the same extreme sizes. The difference is not magic, it is stability. The Amazon does not experience harsh winters or long dry seasons that wipe out food. Warmth and moisture stay almost constant. Plants grow non-stop. Prey is always available. That means animals here are never forced to rush their growth or compete in sudden collapses of resources. Even more important, huge parts of the forest flood every year. Trees become islands. The ground turns into shallow lakes. Water supports heavy bodies, reducing the strain that gravity puts on muscles and bones. In this environment, getting bigger does not slow you down. It makes you stronger. Large animals can move more easily, hide better, and dominate food sources. Size becomes a long-term advantage instead of a risk. The Amazon does not push animals to grow fast. It allows them to grow endlessly. And once you understand that, the next giants you meet will start to make a lot more sense. But before we go ahead, make sure to like and subscribe because you don't want to miss our next videos. The arapaima is one of the clearest examples of how the Amazon turns normal animals into giants. This freshwater fish can grow longer than a human and weigh hundreds of pounds, yet it moves slowly and calmly through dark, still water. It does not need speed to survive, it needs time. Arapaima grow over many years. They live a long time, and because the Amazon never truly runs out of food or warmth, nothing forces them to stop growing. They rise to the surface to breathe air, glide back down, and continue feeding in an environment that almost never changes. The same pattern appears in the black caiman. This massive crocodilian is the apex predator of the Amazon's rivers. Before heavy hunting, some individuals reached enormous sizes. They ruled the waterways because the environment let them. Slow currents, abundant prey, and warm water allowed them to grow larger and stronger with every passing year. Different species, same story. When water supports the body and food never disappears, size becomes inevitable. And when that pattern repeats again and again, you start to realize something unsettling. The Amazon does not just produce a few giants, it creates a system where growing huge is the natural outcome. The most unsettling part is that this pattern does not stop with fish and reptiles. It reaches even the smallest creatures. The Goliath bird-eater spider is the largest spider on Earth by mass. In most parts of the world, spiders stay small because they burn too much energy, hunting and hiding. But in the Amazon, humidity keeps their bodies from drying out, and food is always nearby. The Goliath bird-eater barely needs to move. It waits. It conserves energy, and because nothing forces it to stop, it keeps growing. This spider does not chase prey, it lets prey come to it. A low-energy lifestyle in a stable environment allows it to build mass slowly over time. That is what makes it so disturbing. You are not looking at a freak of nature. You are looking at the logical result of a jungle that never runs out of warmth, moisture, or food. Even animals we think of as fragile scale up here. And once you see a spider reach the size of a small animal, the idea of normal starts to fall apart. The Amazon does not care what you think an animal should look like. It only cares that there is enough energy for it to keep growing. And that brings us to a creature that proves even amphibians cannot stay small here. The giant monkey frog is another quiet example of what this jungle does to living things. In most parts of the world, frogs stay small because they lose water easily and burn energy fast. But in the Amazon, moisture is everywhere. The air is thick with humidity and the forest floor never truly dries out, which removes one of the biggest limits on amphibian size. This frog has thick skin that helps it retain water and a slow metabolism that conserves energy. It does not need to rush. It does not need to move much. It can sit for long periods, feeding when it wants and growing when it can. Over time, that steady lifestyle turns into size. The giant monkey frog grows larger than most other frogs because nothing in its environment forces it to stay small. There is always water. There is always food. There is always warmth. It does not have to survive winters, droughts, or sudden die-offs that shrink animals elsewhere. And that is the pattern you keep seeing. When animals are not pushed by harsh seasons, when they are not fighting constant shortages, their bodies follow a different strategy. Instead of staying lean and fast, they grow heavier and stronger, building mass slowly over years. In the Amazon, even creatures you expect to be tiny are shaped by the same invisible force. And once you see it happening in frogs, you start to realize it is happening everywhere around you. Across most of the world, animals grow until something forces them to stop. Cold seasons arrive, food runs out. Bodies have to shift from growing to simply surviving. But in the Amazon, that moment almost never comes. Warmth stays year-round, rain keeps falling, plants keep producing energy. That means animals never hit a wall where they have to shrink, migrate, or die back. Instead, they can keep adding mass slowly over time, turning years into size. Predators and prey stay in balance, which prevents sudden crashes that would wipe out food sources. With nothing resetting the system, growth becomes steady. Instead of rushed, a body that grows a little every year eventually becomes enormous. Here, being big is not a liability. It is an advantage. A larger animal stores more energy, dominates territory, and survives longer. Over decades, that advantage compounds into gigantism. So in this jungle, animals do not just grow, they are allowed to grow, and this is where the story becomes strange. Because even though the Amazon produces some of the largest animals on Earth, most people never see their true size. What you experience instead are fragments. A shadow in the water, a movement in the leaves, a shape disappearing before your eyes can lock onto it. And that is exactly where the myths begin. People think the Amazon exaggerates the size of its animals. They imagine stories being stretched and rumors growing with every retelling. But the truth is almost the opposite. The jungle does not make things seem bigger. It hides how big they really are. Dense vegetation blocks your view. Water covers bodies. Mist and shadow erase scale. You almost never see an animal from head to tail. You see a coil, a ripple, a limb, or a silhouette. Your brain tries to fill in the gaps. A splash in the water could be a small fish or a massive caiman. A movement in the leaves could be a monkey or something far larger. Without clear reference points, everything feels enormous. The giants were always there. The jungle just never shows them to you all at once. And that mystery keeps feeding the fear, which makes the next truth even more unsettling. The giants of the Amazon exist only because the system that supports them stays intact. Water, warmth, and food have to keep flowing without interruption. When any part of that balance disappears, size stops being an advantage and starts becoming a weakness. Large animals need more energy. They need more prey. They need more space. If rivers dry up, forests are cleared, or temperatures shift, the biggest creatures are the first to struggle. They cannot hide. They cannot move easily. They cannot survive sudden shortages the way smaller animals can. That is why when an ecosystem begins to collapse, the silence comes first. The largest predators and the biggest animals vanish before anything else. Their absence is the warning sign that something has gone wrong. The Amazon's giants are not just impressive. They are fragile. They only exist because everything around them still works. And when you see that fragility, the final piece of the story becomes clear. It is not the animals that create the giants. It is the jungle itself. So now when you think about the Amazon, do not picture a jungle full of animals. Picture a machine that never stops feeding, warming, and reshaping life itself. If this changed the way you see the wild, like and subscribe, because some of the most extreme transformations on Earth are still hiding where almost no one looks.